Hi, I wanted to address comments that were made about the discussion about the caste system in India. And I wanted to kind of reach out and talk about some of the comments that most of you made. Sounded like everybody was had a lot of objection to the idea of a caste system, and there seemed to be quite a bit of agreement that the stratification of society didn't equally benefit everybody, that the people on the top benefited more than the people on the bottom. That seems pretty obvious. Strayer, in his textbook, leaves it pretty fuzzy about why we think that the caste system probably developed. Several other historical sources suggest what might have happened is Aryans moved in from somewhere near Central Asia, and as they moved into India, they had lighter skin and they were pastoral people who were used to being on the move and maybe had superior warrior ability. And they gradually came to settle in and among people who were called Dravas, now Dravidian people. And those people were farmers and they were close to the soil. And eventually those Aryan people came to dominate the Dravidian people. But the Dravidian people had a darker skin tone than the Aryans did, so it was easy to distinguish the people from each other. Over time, the caste system developed, and the Aryan people seemed to have the places at the top of society. You guys all correctly identified the different levels of the caste system, as well as the untouchables who were totally outside of society. One of the things we didn't talk about is the role of slavery in Indian society. You probably have picked up by now that slavery was an institution in every human society. Slavery existed in Europe, in the Middle East, it existed in China, it existed in Africa, it existed in the Americas. That was a part of life, largely in part because of people being conquered and then being taken to perform menial labor as the result of losing a battle. One of the things that does seem clear is that caste did have a relation to skin color. Now, how it came to be and why it came to be, that's the part that's kind of unclear. Although if we look at the society we live in now, I think we could think of an analogy to the United States. If we think about light-skinned Europeans who had advanced military resources coming to the Americas, they came to dominate the local people. And over time, it was easy for Europeans who came from the more northern part of Europe to physically distinguish themselves from people who had a darker skin tone who had been here before. And if we look at stratification in our own society, I think if we're going to be really honest, we have to say that one of the markers of distinction in society does have to do with race and skin color. And then certainly there's the added element of people of African ancestry who were brought here for the purpose of being enslaved. So if we look around the world, we know that stratification has always taken place in society. Now the question is, we live in a day and age when we have more education available than ever before, and we have a high degree of input into our government. Many of you suggested that education would be a solution to the problem of social stratification. I think that's excellent. Some people said that poverty and socioeconomic differences clearly seem to be a part of it. And the question with that is, what do we do about that? Most of us agree it's not just. Most of us agree that it damages the people who are in the disadvantaged position, which leaves us wondering, how do we get at the roots of poverty and what do we do about that? As healthcare professionals, you're going to be on the front line of these questions because you're going to be treating people who come from every walk of life, and poverty complicates medical treatment. And I don't even need to tell you anything about that. You know that better than I do. So this question of caste system, while in the Indian context seems very distant and seems like an interesting case study that's not so related to us, I think there are a lot of parallels. You guys made some great comments about bullying. I think we can also look at racial differences, the Black Lives Matter movement, and problems right now with, at least officially, our federal government having resistance to people from Mexico being in our country, all as markers of a latent caste system that maybe we even have that we don't like to talk about. Certainly it isn't as formalized as it was in India. One other thing is, maybe, this would be an interesting point of discussion, do we draw upon extended kinship networks for support, those of us who do not live in the highest socioeconomic statuses? And was the Jati system actually a way of people who were on the lower end of the caste system to protect themselves from people who were in the Brahmin class and the higher classes? Great discussion. There's a little bit more for us to think about with this topic.